The Battlegrounds community is just the worst. Now, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that this community is just so toxic. It's like saying the fire is hot, especially considering that it's a Roblox game. But regardless of that, it's one of the biggest pits of toxicity I've ever been included in. That being said, I am in no way a saint. I've had a fair share of my own toxicity, but I attempt to stray away from it whenever possible. But why is the community like this? Well, get ready, because I'm about to tell you. I'ma be up and honest, it's because this game is just full of children. Why is this a problem exactly? Well, poor old Timmy, after spending hours on this game and going into 1v1s or 2v2s, if they lose, well, all of the hours they've played, it's just all wasted. They cannot handle one loss, and to make themselves feel better, they'll just start being toxic, saying easy, runner, you're bad, skill issue, just overall being a nuisance. Another bigger issue is that this game is just way too competitive. Well, let's say for example you wanted to play the game casually. Well, what can you play? You can play main game, you can go kill people there, but if you do that, you'll probably get jumped by 5 people in a group. So that's not an option. Well, you could always play the game modes that are in the game. Well, your only options are ranked 1v1s and ranked 2v2s. And I'm not even going to point out how horrendous the ranking system even is. Sometimes you can get matched against the world's best player who's touched this earth, or the world's worst player who just picked up the game after getting off of school at 1 PM. As for the case of Sorcerer Battlegrounds, the developers aren't any better, as they are just straight up promoting their toxicity. And then I see them asking, why is everybody so toxic about our updates, whenever they promote their own game's toxicity? Which is just insane. I don't think this one section is good enough to cover all of the toxicity, so I'll go one by one. Starting off with... This is probably the easiest one to address, so I'll quickly mention it. Whenever people say easy, it's usually after killing you after a tough fight or after they die. As to why they say it, well, it's probably to just boost their own ego, and there's not much else to it. Unless they are a YouTuber and they try to get a reaction out of you, so they can upload it to YouTube and garner thousands of views. But I'm not even sure if you could use easy as an insult, since it literally has no meaning behind it. And with that, I'll move on to the next section. This is also a decently common one that I see, and it's also one of the easier ones to dismiss. People usually say this after you don't blatantly walk into their M1s or whatever move they're doing at the time. I also want to pose a question to the lot of you that have played 1v1s and 2v2s before, which is probably most of you. How many times have you ran at somebody while all of your moves are on a cooldown? Probably not many of you, as it makes absolutely zero sense why you would do that. You probably will want to stay far away for a bit so everything goes off of cooldown. And most of these people who say runner do the exact same thing. So you probably shouldn't take it to heart whenever people say this. Most Battleground games are pretty movement focused, so I shouldn't see an issue with people making distance when need be. But yeah, moving on. Oh boy, where do I get started with this one? Being called a spammer is basically them telling you to just not play the game. Don't use any of your moves when they're off of cooldown. They also say the same thing about stuff like using your ultimate, which is like, what do you want me to do if I'm low HP or everything is on cooldown? Would you prefer me to just stand still? If you get called a spammer, then you're probably playing the game correctly, as you're just pressing your buttons and playing the game. And if you really have a problem with people quote-unquote spamming, take it up with the developers, not the guy you're playing against, as he's probably trying to have as much fun as you are. So just let the poor guy be. This is my last point, so let's get on with the conclusion of the video, and I'll tell you the second answer. Now, as I briefly mentioned at the start of this video, this game has a lot of competitive players, and for some reason, most of these players think that they are the next esports prodigy. They think that no matter what, they will win, and if they lose, it's your fault. You were spamming, you were running, you were ult spamming, you were doing literally anything, and they will put the blame on anything else other than themselves. There's also some people who hate toxicity, but then whenever they see a toxic guy, they respond with even more toxicity. So do keep in mind, if you retaliate after they are toxic, you are not any better than them. You do not have any moral high grounds. There are some pretty understandable excuses, like dying to a bug, for example getting flung out the map, which has been happening pretty recently, or dying to a bug abuser or some form of exploits. Those are all understandable, but do keep in mind, most of those things, for example dying to a bug, isn't the player's fault, the guy you're fighting against. As to why am I making this video? Well, it's for the people who watch to the end, who this video resonates with. Because if we don't get the toxicity down, in about a year or two, it will get so bad that newer players will just get turned off from ever joining this. I've had quite a few friends who've tried to get into it, but simply can't because of the amount of toxicity, the negativity. It's just too much. I'm sure quite a lot of you love this game as much as I do, and this goes for Strongest as well, so spread the message around. And I'll see you in the next one.